Welcome back. Yet again, adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS. In the last episode, New Gen has claimed its fifth victim, Dr. Fumio Takashina of the local general hospital. The physician that had treated Takumi Nichijou up until 5 years ago. Which is, of course, very dire news for Takumi, as not only was Takashina somebody who he put his trust in, despite the fact that it had been 5 years since they last met, and Takashina didn't seem to recall who Takumi was, but that's beside the point. What matters is that Takashina is the first of the New Gen victims to actually have a connection with Takumi himself, either directly or indirectly, making him the first victim to have that connection, which means that the net is definitely starting to close in around Takumi Nichijou, like it or not. However, that aside, a rather curious event happened at Miyashita Park, involving a rather strange gathering of people, as if they were being hypnotized, and to some extent they were. They were somehow being controlled by a man with a large rucksack carrying a metal device that was curiously designed by none other than the Nozomi Corporation. But of course, Senna just happened to be hanging around the area and was acutely aware of what was going on in the park, and with the power of her D-sword completely severed the device controlling the unfortunate people. But looks like things are starting to build up, and it's also the changing of the season. The sky was a little dull somehow, as though its colors were fading, but in exchange the fall leaves at the park and so forth were brilliant. Maybe the trees were stealing away the sky's vibrancy. Poetic way of putting it. I stuck my toothbrush in my mouth as I gazed up at that subdued sky. One of the nice things about the base where I lived was that I could freely use the open space of the roof without needing to worry about catching anyone's eyes. Even though there are clearly quite a lot of windows in front of us here on this particular high-rise skyline. It was inconvenient when it rained, because the sink was located outside the container housing. But on days with good weather, I would come outside and brush my teeth like this. It is a very nice view. Rubbing my eyes as I moved the toothbrush, I thought back over what had happened yesterday. Rimi had stayed in my room with me until late at night. She'd held my hand for almost an hour, the full time it took me to calm down. And it's a good thing she did, because if she wasn't there, the last threads of Takumi's sanity would have broken with the revelation of Takashina's unfortunate death. And yet again, like the others, it was a completely disconnected and very gruesome demise. Because Takashina's brain was surgically removed. But that in and of itself is very telling. And while the other murders were quite different, actually, just positing a theory here, ladies and gentlemen, don't mind me, but just the fact remains is that whoever killed Takashina, whether they're the New Gen criminal or not, they're a skilled surgeon. They'd have to be in order to do as delicate a procedure of murdering him by physically removing his brain from his cranium. Once again, I apologize for the details. But believe it or not, they are actually a vital clue. Of course, going back to Takumi's musings over Rimi, that said, nothing else happened between us before she went home. We were two people of the opposite sex and the same age, and we'd been in the same small room for hours all by ourselves, but there hadn't been the single bit of innuendo in our conversations. I should think not. If I had the ability to talk about such things, I'd already be living a full-fledged life. No, more than that. The part of me with ulterior motives made me want to throw up. Rimi was pure-heartedly trying to help me as a friend. But she had already done a great deal to save me simply by telling me I'll be there for you. There was a huge difference between having and not having a source of moral support. Despite the huge impact of learning about Dr. Takashina's murder and the brainless incident, I had managed to become much more mentally stable now than a day or so earlier. Come to think of it, what was the truth about that arrow, Rimi? The same phenomenon, very similar to the one with Ayase in the subway. She'd seemed much too real for a delusion. And yet delusion she was. Remained incredibly hot no matter how much I reflected back on it. I hadn't exactly surveyed every inch of her, but I'd certainly spied things like the wrinkles in her panties. As a self-appointed pantymeister, only when it came to figures, I thought those wrinkles were considerably realistic. It wasn't the kind of thing you could come up with in a daydream, hehehe. Except, of course, that is exactly what you did when you came up with that delusion. No, hey, that crap didn't matter either way. The power to project delusions into reality. Did something like that truly exist? Or if it did, it could be a huge step up from Victor Condria's development, I can tell you that much. Was Shogun targeting me because I possessed it? Come to think of it, yet again, the fact that he told Takumi to awaken or more people would die would certainly fit that theory. But we still don't know Shogun's true role in all this. If I did have such a power, one of my childhood memories came back to life. This is probably not going to be a good sign, given that Takumi hadn't had that as good of a childhood as he would have liked. The day I hadn't been able to go on this field trip, the day I alone hadn't met with an accident. The bus rolled over and my classmates had gotten hurt. Mr. Saito, my teacher, died. Those images had appeared vividly in my head. Of course, there he is doodling on his little scrapbook there with his crayons or drawing pencils. I'd seen them clearly. Were they just a form of precognition? Or it's one thing to actually perceive the future. It's another thing to actually make it happen by using delusions as a bridge. What if it wasn't precognition? If it was one of my delusions? If that delusion had been projected into reality? My body threatened to start quaking, and I wrapped my arms around myself to suppress it. I've already had enough trauma with Takashina.
だとしたら僕は
A murderer.
おはよ
Who could that be? None other than Sakihata. Rimi was there. Cheerful despite how early it was, she gave me a huge smile. When I saw her smile, my shaking stopped. It was strange. I was supposed to have a hard time with 3D girls, but for some reason I could relax if I were together with Rimi. That's definitely good to know.
迎えに来たよ。
Well, she promised as much over the last couple of days. In other words, she is keeping her word.
なんでポッカーンってしてるの？
Just as you'd hoped she would, Takumi Nishijo. Ah, right. According to my minimum attendance shift chart, I'd have to go to school today as well. When I mentioned that to Rimi yesterday,
迎えに来てあげるって言ったよね。
right, thanks to the Shogun, I was now afraid to so much as walk outside by myself. Seeing me like that, Rimi told me I'll be there for you. She was sticking to her promise, and for which you should be eternally grateful.
まさか本当に来るとは思わなかったとか？
The fear of that probably crossed his mind. Not that you wouldn't keep your promise of your own volition, but rather that you couldn't. But that fear has obviously been allayed for the time being.
ビシッ
There's her silly little pose.
残念でした。こう見えても私尽くすタイプなんだ。
Rimi said, winking impishly. What did Roger is this from? Having a female classmate come to your house to get you. It was a situation you'd almost never experience in real life. You would be surprised. Although the ultimate best pattern would be if she barged into your room and forcibly shook you awake. Once again delving into Daru territory there. Rimi, standing beside me as I had that kind of idiotic daydream, abruptly tipped her head back to look at the sky. Her eyes grew distant again.
冬の空が色あせたように見えるのはどうしてだと思う？
There have been 7 colors in sunlight, the familiar colors of the rainbow. In order for those 7 colors to reach human eyes, they had to pass through the Earth's atmosphere. As they do, a phenomenon known as diffusion takes place. To put it simply, light slants off in random directions when it collides with atmospheric particles. Slanting off in random directions means that it ends up going here and there all over the place. This makes it easier to reach human sight. You can observe this phenomena using prisms. Out of all the colors, purple and blue scatter most easily. That's why the sky is blue. I'm smart. That you actually are. You are actually well educated. But Rimi's answer was utterly separate from scientific proof and its absence of romance.
きっと寒くてみんなが下を向いちゃうから。
Very poetic statement there. You're probably also right about the first part of that statement, not so much about the latter.
青を望む人の数が減っちゃうの。
I had the feeling that I'd heard her say something similar before. When was it again? There's that gap in your memory.
だから寒くても上を向いて歩こ
And she's a bit more perky again than she was a moment ago. I hastily changed outfits and left the Kurenai building with Rimi.
う。
Going to school together. Huh. No matter how I looked at it, this was the essence of being in real life, IRL. And just gotta glimpse with my ears that Rimi was humming the song that Fez was singing at the Gigantes concert. The one about the staking, which she probably shouldn't sing that while Takumi is here. That's definitely going to bring back terrifying memories. Shogun and Yua were scary and obnoxious, and the no really, go die type. But it was thanks to them I was able to undergo this sort of real-life experience. Maybe I should be a tiny bit grateful for them, although I sincerely doubt you will actually be that grateful. I tried to compel myself, but Dr. Takashina's face revived at the back of my mind, and my crazy mood soon drained away. It might be my fault that he'd been killed. Shogun had murdered the doctor with a connection to me, either as a sign to me or a form of provocation. Fear and insecurity overwhelmed me. I gradually began to lag behind Rimi's walking pace, and there were only about two or so passers-by in this particular area. Quite nice decor, really. I glanced at the back of Rimi's head from behind her and off a little off to the side. What kind of expression was she making? Probably a happy one. She was humming. This was a song from the Phantasm CD I loaned her yesterday. Her footsteps seemed light. We weren't even talking, so why did she appear to be having so much fun? Probably because that's her personality trait. As I watched her, my anxiety decreased a little. But honestly, I wondered why Rimi was this kind to me. Could the reason for it be found in my time spent with her? The time of which I only had blank memories? Possibly, is the only response that I can give to that sentiment. When we reached school, I sent Rimi on ahead and stopped by the bathroom. This was one aspect of my coping strategy. I felt bad since Rimi had gone as far as to pick me up, but arriving at school with a girl would be much too conspicuous, especially if the class juvies spotted me. They might use it as an excuse to pick a fight. To say nothing of Daisuke Mizumi's reaction if he saw the two of them walking together. That was why I went to the bathroom and bought some time, so it looked like I would come to school on my own. On a side note, I failed in this, completely and utterly. I left the bathroom in every appearance of innocence and facing downward, walked along the edge of the hall to my classroom. Midway through, I saw Ayase walking toward me from afar, dressed in her own school attire, devoid of the gothic ambience of Fez. When our eyes met, she twisted her lips into a thin smile, probably as a quiet form of greeting. Yeah, I don't think Takumi's in the mood to talk to you right now, Ayase. Ayase was a celebrity. I figured I'd hold back on talking to her in school, since it would make me stand out. But with her standing there as though to block my way, I had no choice but to follow her lead. If this is about the D-Sword, Fez, we're still SOL on that front.
匠、あれから警察はどう？
It's odd. At first we were being pursued, and then we weren't. But then again, Not really sure if we should tell her about Takashina. On the verge of shrieking, I clamped a hand over my mouth. Why are you bringing up such a risky topic with all these people around? I took a flustered look at our surroundings. The situation was pretty bad. As expected, Ayase was the target of everyone's attention. Not only was her coming to school rare in and of itself, but she was also the lead vocalist of Phantasm, and furthermore an androgynous beauty. Girls and guys alike were deeply interested in her. Normally it would be inconceivable for her to talk to an otaku freak like me. The onlooker's gazes stung. I wanted to flee.
剣を探して。君はそうしなくちゃいけないのよ。
She said the same thing every single time we met. For the good that it's gonna do us. Ayase might have been on my side, but I got pretty sick of her when she repeated herself like she was the village idiot. I wanted to get my hands on it more than anyone, but I didn't know how.
ヒントが欲しい。君はどうやってあれを手に入れた？
You probably aren't gonna like her answer to that.
いつの間にかそこにあった。
This again. Was she avoiding giving me an answer at all? Or maybe because in the end, not even Ayase Kishimoto can quite explain just how she manifested the D-sword in the first place.
気づかなかったわ、最初は。でも、ちょっとだけ見方を変えたら、わかった。もしかしたら、匠にももう見えているのかも。見ていないだけで。
I had no idea what she meant. Talking with Ayase always wore me out. Spare me the Zen cones, will you?
剣はちゃんと探してるよ。僕だって絶対手に入れたいから。
Having said that much, I let out a sigh and slipped past her, heading for my classroom, as the gazes stabbing me from all sides grew intolerable. That is going to mark the end of this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Adventurers, and when we return, we'll see if Takumi's school day actually gets better or worse from here on out. My money's on the latter, knowing his luck. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.